CKiW iRADIO 76 proudly presents the 515 Show with your host, John Sarver. Who's at the 515 door today?
Well, this is always interesting, only because we got to bump into this young man when we were at PRI, and it was just an enjoyable time for us. I mean, as folks know, as our worldwide folks know, that we love Pro Stock. Absolutely, positively, upside down, backward, forward. It is our gig. And when you see all the photos and the life-size cutout of Ronnie Socks in the lobby and stuff like that, you probably get the hint that we love that era of Pro Stock. And it was an amazing thing for us to run into. We see this Bob Glidden car, and we're going, okay, this got our interest. And then we bumped into this gentleman, and we had a great time. It is Mike Ruth from the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association. Hi, Mike.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Dandy, how are you?
I couldn't be better. Great to be on your show. After following Raleigh Miller and Brian Wolf, I made it. That's very cool. So, and thanks for the young man thing and gentleman. So you're batting 1,000 here.
Thanks. Well, there you go. It's an amazing thing, only because it's what we have seen in the last couple of years in drag racing, especially for the fans, that we're seeing a huge wave of nostalgia coming back, and it's not because people doesn't like what's going on right now with the bigger classes and stuff, or funny car or whatever it's considered funny car right now, but they see these cars, and it was not only the golden era of the era of drag racing, but there's so many memories wrapped up in a lot of these cars, and so many people identified with these cars. It's no wonder that every time that you see groups like yourself go out somewhere, you pack the place where there's other divisions that are sorely lacking. And it's an amazing thing, Mike. I mean, how long have you been with these guys?
Well, they started. Mark Pappas is the guy that started it in the Midwest at Great Lakes Dragaway, probably around 2010. And I got hooked up with him shortly thereafter. I was his crew chief for several years, and decided, I want one of these things. So, but yeah, we've been doing it, I guess, 12 years or so. And it just seems to be growing and growing and growing, and we're refining it every year, and it's a fun deal. I got to tell you, we're having more fun driving these things than probably the people in the stands are watching it. So. I feel just like, it's almost like a dream being able to do this. So,
I mean, tell the folks, Michael, exactly what car you have.
I have a replica. It's not, I have to, state this loud and clear because you'll get all kinds of mail. It is not an original Bob Glidden car. Bob never drove it. Bob never worked on it. It was built in '79 as a Pro Stock, and it did race out in Division 7 in Pro Stock for a couple of years. Then it went into the bracket, deals and all that, and I got it and resurrected it back into a Pro Stock again, with Bob's permission. And actually, the whole Glidden family has been just nothing but good to me. Both Billy and Rusty signed the dash, and Rusty actually comes out and helps us at some of the events. So that's pretty cool.
Mike, what did it take for you to get it back to being a Pro Stock of that era?
Well, the car was running a flying toilet on alcohol. It had a power. Yeah, and it was rough. It was pretty rough. But as I've been a chassis builder my whole life, so my crew chief and I, Dave Meyer, we took the whole car apart and put more tubing in and had put the Lenko in it as it had an automatic. Remounted the parachute, redid every bit of tin, redid the windows, and then we took it to another friend of mine, Chuck Esdale, who does phenomenal work and body work in that, and he straightened the body up for us and painted it, and then we had the legend Brando hand stripe and hand letter the whole car. So
Yeah, I thought it was amazing because that isn't vinyl on the side there. When you get up, you don't even have to really get up close to see the hand lettering. Talk about a lost art.
Yeah, that's the way they were back then. I mean, yes, some of the decals, the contingency decals are vinyl, but that's how they were. But all the name and, like I said, the stripes and all that, that was all hand done and laid out, and that was a tough one to do for them. Both of them were giving me nothing but flack about all the stripes where they meet and all this other stuff. But they just did a phenomenal job, and I mean, that car's, I think this is our 6th year, I think, with that car, and it's been, we go out a lot. I mean, that car gets beat up pretty good. So, and it's been from East Coast to West Coast and South, and everywhere. So,
well, folks are asking exactly what is under the hood now with that car.
It's a Ford wedge motor. I mean, Bob would roll over in his grave if I would have put any Ford in it. And so it's a little over 500 cubic inches, and it runs a tunnel ram with 2 4-barrels. It's got a McLeod clutch. McLeod, again, one of our sponsors, helped me tremendously. And the original guy that used to work on the same type of clutch with Bob, Fred Taylor, is actually the guy that sets this one up for me, although I understand he's getting ready to retire. So it's set up similar to the way that they had it. I mean, Bob ran a Cleveland motor in it, and, which is, for what I'm doing, it's pretty expensive engine to try to maintain and all that. So we just went with more cubic inches, but it is definitely a Ford, and and I'll tell you, boy, I hear it all the time. People come up, I bet it's got a big block Chevy, and then they see the valve, they get a big smile on their face. So, but
God, wouldn't that be?
These guys out there are a lot more savvy than you think. And they know, they look for the clutch, they look for the sticks for the Lenco, and they can certainly tell a big block Chevy from a Ford, that's for sure.
I mean, do you get grief whatsoever when you go out and pop the hood or put it off to the side so fans can go by it? Do they check it out every nut and bolt and go, now wait a minute?
I had a couple of good stories. I've had a couple of guys come up and say, that Goodyear sticker was about 1/4 of an inch over. Okay. And then one of the guys that worked with Bob in the beginning, when I had the car at PRI, I don't know how much, 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. And
a guy came up and he said, I'm so-and-so, I used to work with Bob, and this and that. He said, this car is nothing like Bob's, and I'm like, really? I try to do a good job. He said, nah, he was a mechanic. He didn't use a fender cover. He just worked on that thing, and it was scratched, and this, that, and the other thing. He said, this car's too pretty. I said, it's the first year, don't worry. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. People, I mean, you get people that come out of the stands and say, hey, I remember when you did, when you beat Grumpy Jenkins, and they're like, well, that was Bob. Much taller, much better golfer, and better looking. So thanks for the compliment.
I mean, Mike,
it's cool.
Do people confuse you? I mean, do they actually go, hi, Bob, how you doing? Could you sign this?
I've had that. I've had guys come up and ask how he's doing and things like that. It's amazing. And, because not all of them, I mean, they never really maybe got to get up close and all that. I mean, but there's a lot of them that know exactly what it is, when they come out and they shake your hand and they say, hey, you know what, thank you so much for doing this. This brings back, the best time of my life. And a lot of the old guys who were racing, they'll come up and say, yeah, I raced against that car. I used to work for this guy or that guy. And so it's an honor, really, to carry that name. But to be honest with you, really, I take it seriously. It's a privilege that not too many people get to have.
Something we got here, something off the hotline at CKiW iRADIO at 76.com. For those of you who have questions for Mike Ruth, and one that came in right away, and did we not do this? What year body style you got?
So it's a 79 Fairmont Futura. And in this particular car, the fellow that bought it had a 4-cylinder in it, and he drove it right to a chassis shop in Oklahoma and had him turn it into a race car.
Wow.
So got steel roof and quarters, and honestly, the front fenders are the original steel front fenders. There's not a lot of fiberglass available for that thing, and it had a glass front end, but it had been hit a few times, and it was kind of heavy anyway, and I thought, you know what, I want this car to look good, too. So we put the steel fenders back on, but it's got working headlights and taillights and marker lights and the whole bit. So,
I mean, could you do a sick week with it? One of those hot rod weekend things?
No, you can't. I mean, you would never be able to run I don't think it would last that long. I've done burn down with it. Mark Pappas and I, who Mark's the one that actually leads the group, and he's got the rare Morrison cars. We did almost a 5-minute burn down at the hot rod reunion last year.
Wow.
Man, I thought I was watching the temperature gauge, and I know. and the cool part was, the announcer, Bob Fry, the guy that originally did all the NHRA announcing. He's retired, but he came in our trailer and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you guys about doing this." Okay. And we said, "All right, we'll do it if you announce." He's like, "Well, let me see what they say." And so he did, and he played it up. I mean, everybody figured it was a real deal. I shouldn't be saying this because now people are going to know. But it was kind of real because there's no way I was going in. Mark and I have a little rivalry. I mean, we're great friends, and I worked for him for a long time and all that. But when the staging lights come on, hey, you may as well be Fidel Castro.
Okay.
But the fans love that kind of stuff. They love to see the rivalries, and it was Bob Fry played it up perfectly. Ford against Chevy and Glidden against Lee Shepard, and the whole. And our crews we're all friends. We all played it up really, really good too. And like I tell you, my foot was getting awful sore holding that clutch down.
Yeah, I mean, could you see? I mean, normally that's where the interior fills with smoke, and it's the doors open, windows down, and you still can't see.
It wasn't, that, my car, we sealed it up pretty good. I don't have too much trouble from the burnouts, but it was, typical Bowling Green in July or June, and it was just so hot, and I'm just, I'm sitting in this thing going, it felt like we were in there for an hour. But I could actually hear the fans yelling and hollering, and the starting line guys are just shaking their heads like, look at these two idiots, what are they doing? But the crowd loved it, and, so, hey, we're there to entertain, that's our job. And we want everybody to have a really good time, and when people come up and say, boy, this is the best weekend I've had in a long time, then I feel like I did my job,
Well, yeah, you did. I mean, but we're thinking about this 5-minute burn down. I mean, are you looking at him going, give up?
Mark's a savvy racer, and let me tell you, you don't give him anything because he'll get you. So I was just looking straight ahead. I thought, I'm not going in until I see his light come on, or my engine gets over 180, one or the other. And he finally went in first, so that was good because I was getting ready to. And,
yeah.
But it was not quite 5. It was like 4. You can see it's on YouTube somewhere. They actually were videoing. Like I say, Bob Fry just did a phenomenal job of hooting it up and making it big. And he kept saying, well, whoever goes in is going to be a wuss. And we couldn't hear that, but we certainly saw the replay and heard it. And we've done that a couple times throughout the country. It seems like people really like, they like the dry hops. They like the long, the smoky burnouts and all that. And they like that they can come up and interact with us. And, I let people sit in the car and take pictures. I mean, it's a car, I'm sure that guys like Greg Anderson and Jason Line and them would love to have people do that. But they're trying to make a buck here. They're trying to get everything perfect, so they don't necessarily come by after the race is over and talk to us kind of thing. We're more much more laid back. It's not nearly as dog eat dog, So that's why we can afford to have like I get the kids that come in and sit in the car, and then the dad takes the picture, then the mom whispers in your ear, "Oh, my husband wants to sit in it." Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's the original reason why they came over.
Yeah,
oh, yeah. Can I have my kids sit in there? And it's like, come on, ask me to go in.
Yeah. But it's fun. The dads will explain to the kids, those are Lenko levers, and this is how you do it, and you pull them, and they just really get. For a while, the car had an automatic in it, and boy, I saw a lot of disappointed faces.
Oh.
And that was back, years back too, and there was a lot of them were like that. Now our group, every one of them has a Lenko, and almost all of them are clutches. We have one or two of the Bruno style converter deals, but most of them are all clutches, and that separates us from some of the others. There's several groups out there. They all have their own ideas on what they think it should be, and we're more of the period correct purists. We're not so much worried about setting the world on fire. Nothing like going fast, but when you have to start altering the car for safety reasons to go fast, now all of a sudden people pull a picture out of their wallet of the car and say, wait a minute, it never had 80-inch wheelie bars. It didn't have a 12-inch extension in the front end, so then it kind of takes away, in our opinion, it takes away. So that's why we try to keep them as exact as, honestly, there's times on the internet when I see pictures and I can't tell if it's Bob's or mine. I got to really take a second look, so.
We're even taking a look at that, too. It's like, what are and you came through with some of the rules of having a Lenko and stuff, but what are the hard and fast rules of the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association?
We pretty much want the cars to be as period correct as possible. So a car like mine, a 79, they never had an aero scoop. So, put a square scoop on it. They all, obviously, if you're going to run quicker than 850, you have to have NHRA mandate certain, roll cage bars and funny car cage and things like that. So we had to update them to do that. But that's inside the car, and you really don't even notice it that much. So, and as the cars get newer, like one of our guys, Ted Peters, has a Scott Jeffrey on Dodge. Well, in that era, they had the aero scoop, so he has it on. And Kevin Lawrence is another one, an NHRA Pro Stock driver that decided to do some of this nostalgia stuff. And he's real good friends with Warren, and he got Warren's permission, and they have a beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous Warren Johnson tribute car. And it's got the aero scoop on it because it's a later model. So we cover 70s, 80s, and 90s cars right now.
Wow. How many cars are in there?
Altogether, maybe about 17 or 18. I don't know.
Wow.
Every year we get more guys that come out. We typically, depending on, we'll tailor the show to fit the track operators, promoters' needs. So if you want 4 cars, we'll do 4. We typically have 6 to 8 cars at an event. And sometimes we'll have more, and other times less. But most of the time, I say 6 is a pretty average, 6 to 8. So,
is there any time where everybody comes out?
We have a deal that Mark Pappas came up with. He actually at one point had a Jenkins car, and he still has. He actually has an original, not a tribute or a remake or anything. He's got the original Grumpy Toy 10 Vega, authenticated and all that. And so he came up with this race. It's the only race that we go no holds barred. It's a race, and it's called the Grumpy Cup. And I think this year is going to be 7th or 8th annual Grumpy Cup. Typically, we've had it. Don Blasco has been the host, whatever track he's with. Not sure exactly this year where it's going to be, but in the track, people from all over the place come, and it started out with just a few cars, and now it's grown into something. And anyone that's won one of those, it's it's pretty important. It's a pretty big thing, and I was fortunate enough to get one a couple of years ago. But that's one of the only times we ever really go at it head to head for the fastest car wins kind of thing.
That's an amazing thing. It really is. I'm taking a look at I guess the partial 2022 schedule for you folks at the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association. I see Great Lakes. I don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, there's another, I guess, issue. There's another group that runs out of Union Grove, Wisconsin, which is kind of in our area, that uses our name.
Uses your name?
Yeah, it's a long story. That I don't. We're over it. Yeah, they just decided to take our name, and so they did. Anyway, they run at Great Lakes Dragway. So, but we go. We go all over the country. Now, we haven't put our schedule out, but I can tell you we will be at the Hot Rod Reunion this year in Bowling Green. We will be at the World Series at Cordova. We'll probably be at several NHRA national national events as we were last year and the year before. We were invited by NHRA to be at the 50th race, the Pro Stock race at Pomona. So we had, I believe, 8 cars we had out there, and that was really something. I mean, to be out at Pomona, and we ran right behind the pros. I mean, they ran us right behind Top Fuel, which was phenomenal. I mean, I lived in California for 15 years, and to be able to drive a car down that track at the Winter Nationals, and then have your name in your car in with the pro program. I mean, what a thrill! I mean, just what a thrill. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
All right, so now are you guys going to go East Coast? I mean, how far do you travel?
We go. There's a race put on. Like I said, there's several of these groups. There's one in the southeast called it's the Southeast Nostalgia Pro Stocks, headed up by Jeff and Gina Rudisill, and they'll do Gainesville and the 4 wide and that for NHRA, and then they have a race called the Don Carlton race every year, and it's a memorial to kind of like our Grumpy Cup. It's a memorial to Don Carlton, and so several of our guys, I went there last year and the year before, show up for that event, and he gets. I mean, when you get a couple of these groups together, I mean, one year we had almost 30 cars, I think 29 cars, and 26 of them went down the track. And a guy actually did there's a 3-hour documentary done by, I can't think of his first name, his name's Amos. And he actually interviewed every driver, and this thing's over 3 hours long. It's pretty neat.
Wow. And how much of you was in there?
They actually did. Everybody got their fair share. I got a tad more only because he had. I had a stint for a couple of years where I worked for Joe Lapone Jr. And he followed Joe around for a while and did a bunch of filming for him. And so we were kind of like an alumni deal, and so he kind of gave me a little extra, I think, because of it. But he did a really, really good job. It's available. You can find it on YouTube. I think he sells them pretty reasonable. But it's everybody, like I said, everybody got their day in the sun, at that deal. And so it'll be going on again this year. I think it's the end of October, and they have it usually last year was in Mooresville, North Carolina. It's usually somewhere in that area. So that's where Don Carlton was from, that area. So we have we have another group on the West Coast that we deal with, headed up by another grumpy guy, Tony Noto, as a Jenkins car. And until recently, the late Bill Nevin was involved in that. And so they do some stuff too. But we're probably, hands down as far as events and shows, we do more than anybody in the Midwest for sure. I mean, this year we've probably got at least a dozen. We had over 15 races last year and half a dozen static displays, like PRI and Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. It's the largest muscle car show in the country, and we had 8 cars at that event. So we do both. We do car shows and then races. So.
Yeah, but still, that's a lot of traveling. I mean, your season begins when, Mike?
We are going out. Trying to think here what the first one's going to be. I know we have one in May. Looks like we may be going to. They're going to have probably. I don't think we're supposed to be announcing this, but what the hell?
It's just you and me. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, right. 3 million people. They shut down. I think it's called Palm Beach International Raceway, the old Moroso Motorsports Park. And they're having a final race there. And it's going to be a huge deal media-wise and everything. And they invited 40 special tribute and cars, and we got invited to that, so I think we're going to be doing that. And it's at the end of April. But it's Florida, so it'll be warm.
Yeah, thank God. Hopefully dry.
Yeah, right.
It's an amazing thing. If you started out, of all the cars that well, let's go backward, Mike. Your first involvement with drag racing started when?
I went to the Great Lakes Dragway before I had a driver's license. Friends, older brothers and that took us there. And I don't think I had my driver's license more than a month or two. It had an old beater Ford Falcon that I just went up there and ran 25 seconds or whatever it was. And then, I just, I've never stopped. I mean, I ended up making it a business, building race cars, and then decided I really wanted to get back into, I was building all these cars for people and watching them go, and I'm like, man, I kind of like to do this again, But you can't run a full-time business. It's hard to run a full-time business and go race at the same time. So,
true.
So we ended up, I sold my business to Heights Hot Rods, and built a car, and here we go. So.
Wow. Okay, and so now that you picked this one, of all the cars you could have picked, why this one with the aquarium back window?
Well, when I worked with Mark, people would come up all the time, the Ford guys, and say, how come you don't have a Bob Glidden car? You guys don't have any Fords, and Mark had two cars at the time. He had his Rare Morrison Camaro, and then he had a Bill Jenkins tribute car. And he said, well, why don't you drive the Grumpy Camaro and, see what you think. So I drove it for a little over a year, but I really wanted my own. He let me do whatever I want to do to the car. It was all good, but, it wasn't mine. And I kept hearing this in the back of my head about, you guys really need a Ford. You really need a Ford. And I thought, well, I didn't want to do at the time, and this is a while ago, we weren't doing too much with the Aero Scoops. They were kind of too new. Nostalgia 10 years ago was really into the 70s, so I thought, well, I never really cared for the Pinto. I liked it. It was a cool car, but I always loved that Fairmont. I thought it was a slick-looking car.
Yeah.
So I decided to, see if, Bob would allow me to do that, and then my girlfriend, who's like the most gigantic supporter I have, she found the car somehow. I don't know how. And then we went and looked at it and bought it.
And then when you had to do the tribute version show of it, did you have like a picture of it?
Oh yeah, there's so much available for that car, and like I said, basically I roughed a lot of the body. The body was in rough shape. I roughed most of it in, and that's about as good as I tubing wise, welding, redoing the dash and the firewall and all that. That's me, but sitting there with Bondo and spot putty, that's not me. So. Like I said, I have a good friend, Chuck Esdale, that does these. He's just absolute phenomenal detail kind of guy, and I thought he's the only guy I want to do it. And when I called him up, it was just the perfect time for him too. And he's like, "Yeah, I want to do this." So, and he just, like I said, he's just absolutely a perfectionist, and car came out really nice. So,
well, if you
Brando's lettering, and it just, what's not to like?
Yeah. But Mike, if you didn't have this car, what would be Plan B? What would be the other car that you would have?
Then I was looking at. I actually tried to buy a Monza that was a tribute car, but that Jenkins had signed off on and that. But I couldn't put the deal together, and so that's when we decided to go after the Ford thing. Honestly, right now, if I quit racing that car, I probably would build. When I first got into real NHRA Pro Stock racing, I worked for Tony Christian. The first year he came back in '85, I worked on his Firebird, and I probably would do a car like that, tribute to that car, because, man, I learned a lot working for him. Just about everything, and then it was a really fun time to be in that. That's when there were characters. We'd go out and, party all night long, and it was just now it's a business kind of thing. Tony was an independent. He didn't have any major sponsors to deal with. We didn't even have uniforms. Black T-shirts and and Levi's. That was our uniform. So,
and how many people on the line?
Well, we didn't have that many people. That was the problem. Everybody was, the main guy in that deal. We had, God rest his soul, Eddie Saccone, a great engine guy who worked with Tony back in the modified days, and Kevin Green was instrumental in that deal. And there was other guys. Bill Lucky redid the whole car to fit Tony and make it work right. There was a lot of people involved in that deal, but I was fortunate enough to to work with him on that. And like I said, I learned, not just the cars, but he's a sharp guy. He's a starting line game player, and he intimidated a lot of people. Even though we didn't have maybe the power, we'd qualify 14th or 15th, but there was a lot of times we ended up in the semi, just because of his driving and his intimidation, whatever you want to call it. So, tremendous amount of respect for that guy. He just, you see his interviews, and he's kind of like that, but he really isn't. He'd give you the shirt off his back if you ask him for it. So,
wow, like a very nice intimidator.
He's always been there. When I was a kid, and I see him driving around. He was always the cool guy, and when he asked me about coming to work for him, I'm like, hell yeah.
Don't ask me twice. You know what? You're lucky, and it's. We did get it off another question off the CKiW iRADIO 76 hotline, and they're absolutely right. You're lucky you went there because the Pinto, from we understand, is a handful to drive. Ever drive one? Pro stock wise?
I've never driven a pro stock Pinto. I drove a couple of super gas type, cars that size, Vegas and that. Believe me, this Fairmont's that was what Bob said. He goes, why on earth would you want to do that car? He said, that's so unaerodynamic. He promised me, he said, you got to put a wing on it. And so I did, And it's not, my brother has a Ness Firebird. It's a party time car. And the difference between those two cars is unbelievable. I mean, you can let go of the steering wheel with his car and read the newspaper going down the track and find your driving. I drive that car all the way down the track. But it's a box,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was never meant to be the slick one.
No, I don't think the guys at Ford were saying, boy, the space shuttles, we better hide this. They might start copying stuff.
Mike, we ask everybody that comes in here, and for somebody with your unique insight for all of this, we're waiting to hear this answer. The best year for drag racing was what?
Oh, boy. That's a tough one. And
I know it is.
I grew up reading about it in the 60s when you had, when Connie Coletta was the bounty hunter and Garlitz was ruling and all that. And I kind of lived through when he was still ruling, and I went through the Shirley years and all that in Top Fuel. It's a tough one because every single generation has its great guys. And I suppose for me, the 70s and 80s up to the 90s was really, really good because I was involved in it. I was fortunate enough to be involved with one car or another for almost 10 years. From Tony, I went to Joe was looking for a guy, and he called me. You want to come and work for me? I don't know. Let me see. Let's talk about it. And I was like, is Bill still? Bill Jenkins, is he still building the engines and everything? He goes, yeah, he's the crew chief. You report to him. I'm like, okay. I was like on the other end of the phone. I'm like, yes. But I did. So whenever I worked there, I asked him, I said, why? He had a lot of guys to choose from. I mean, I don't understand, He said, well, I know you work for Tony Christian. If you can work for a guy like him, you can work for me. Okay. So, and then, just was able to do it for a while, and I was very fortunate that my business, I could take time off from it and be able to do all this. And it definitely helped, being in the chassis business. It certainly helped having your finger, right on the pulse. I'm not getting information secondhand. Rare Morrison built our engines. It doesn't get any better than that. So, I was able to kind of be ahead of the curve, let's say, compared to a lot of the other guys out there. So it was very good business-wise for me, too. And it was, I had to tell you, it was standing on the starting line with 60,000 people in the stands, and, it's pretty damn cool. So.
Yeah. And as we ask you to do so much ask questions about there and now, if you had to change one thing in drag racing now, what would you do? Yeah.
It's, I think they need to somehow get more younger people involved in the sport. And I don't know whether that's going to be through a junior dragster program or, maybe come up with, junior funny car. I don't know, but you look at the stands, you look at the people that are out there, and it's dying. Everybody's 60, 70 years old, whatever. I mean, look at the three principles in fuel. All three of them are getting up there, you know. So that would be, I mean, and I don't profess to have the answer. I don't know what the answer is, but all I know is that if it continues on this course, it's just going to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle, you know. And you know, a lot of it is, when I was in high school, everybody had some kind of a souped-up car, you know. And, you know, even guys that were the jocks, let's say, they had class packs and headers on their car, they had them jacked up in the back, the tires. You know, now they don't, and then there's a lot of reasons for it, I guess, you know, the cost of the vehicles and gas, and, you know, that whole culture, the culture that you and I grew up in, is going away. You know, it's just, there's a lot of old guys out there. You go to these cruise events, but they're all, you know, you don't see very many 20-year-old guys driving around, you know, with their girlfriend sitting right on top of them. I mean, when I was in school, that's what everybody did, you know.
Yeah, there's always been a slant that we lost the generation in the mid-'80s, because when you went to your dealership, what were you excited about? Yeah, you had a 5.0 Mustang, but then again, it was like Chrysler was offering you a what? A TC3? I mean, Chevrolet was offering you a Z34, you know, 24. I mean, would you be excited by any of those sticker cars? No, and that's where I think they lost it, and they better hurry to get them back.
Yeah, well, I'm amazed that they actually started with, you know, however many, 10 years ago when Chrysler came out with the Hemi again, and, you know, so it's kind of good, but it's sort of, it still is catering to, I don't want to say elite, but it's catering, you know, a 19-year-old guy can't go out and buy a Hemi Challenger right now, you know, I mean, you know, the average guy, let's say, and back in and I actually even miss sort of that. I mean, I'm going to be 67 this year. And I remember the guys that were a couple years older than me walking into a Chevy dealer, putting $50 down on a 396 Nova and driving out with $110 a month car payment, whatever. And then, you know, it was amazing. And I kind of missed out on that. By the time I turned 16, you know, they were starting to smog them and that, you know, they were definitely not what they were. So that it kind of started there, and I don't know, it's evolution, I guess, and I'm happy that, you know, I watched a little bit of the NHRA race this weekend. Seemed like the stands were fairly packed, but like you said earlier, man, the nostalgia stuff is kind of where it's at. I was talking Rob Huckstad, who's the editor of Nostalgia Drag World, last night actually, and he helps sort of put on the Funny Car Chaos. And the first race that they have in Texas coming up, they have 70 cars entered. 70 nostalgia funny cars.
Yeah, and real floppers, and the ones that actually did look like the Snowman, you know, did look like Candies and Hues, did look like relatively the car that they were representing, as opposed to a blob in the middle, and everybody's the same with the sticker. And, you know, we call it the NASCAR mentality. It's, you know, sticker front end, sticker back end, and it's like, oh, that's your car? Cool. You know, I mean, you take a look at those floppers back in the day, you take a look at it and you go, God love you. I mean, our big guy here is Randy Lindemood, Roger Lindemood's son, you know, and we take a look at all of his Color Me Gone stuff, and he still has one of them, you know, here in Warren, and it's like, you actually sat in this thing to race? You know, I mean, what you know, was safety back then, and I'm using the bunny years, you know, for safety, and you go, God love you. And to get 70 cars like that, because I know that Steve Tomosik has his Detroit Tiger funny car. He's going to be involved with that. Matter of fact, I think he's coming up next week here at the 515.
Cool.
He was intimidated. He wanted to make sure you went first.
Yeah, right.
To get the numbers, you know.
I've seen him ride. Well, we were at a couple of events where that car was there because he does a lot of Midwest stuff, and that's just absolute. I get yelled at my crew, especially Eileen, my girlfriend.
Yelled at
because I'm on the start, you know, because you got you're a competitor, you can kind of wander up to the starting line. They don't say a whole lot, and I'm right there watching those cars, and she's like, you know, we're up next. Yeah. Just get the car up there. And that is, he does a heck of a job with that car. He knows how to put on a show, and that car runs hard.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he's outstanding. I mean, are you coming up to Michigan anytime soon with your car?
haven't heard of anything. We did do 131 a couple of years ago. I know we've got a jam-packed schedule this year. I mean, we've already signed a lot of stuff, and we've got a couple of them right now that we're trying to work it out because some events fall on the same date as other events. And, we hate to, so we're trying to divide and conquer kind of things. So we're going to publish our schedule soon, but at this point, I don't believe we have anything in Michigan. But we have several new venues that we're going to do this year, which is, for me, it's always exciting to go to a track that I've never raced at before.
Okay, but flip that over, Mike. I mean, what is your favorite track to go back to?
Well, I mean,
besides all of them, but
yeah, I mean, I've never been to a racetrack yet that I didn't have a good time at. So I'll race. Like I told the guy one time, I'll race in the middle of the night anywhere. I'm having fun just driving the car. I get the same feeling that when I got my first hot rod in high school. Thumping the clutch. I mean, I don't need to. I wish this thing was like it was when we were in high school. I could make 6 or 7 passes on a Friday night. Drive it to the malt shop, and unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But I don't know. Indy has always been a cool. I mean, Indy's Indy. How do you not like it? Pomona doing the deal for NHRA at Pomona. I mean, that was very special, and that is a great track, and all the history there. You think of all the people that went down that track, and it's just amazing. And then when we were in the staging lanes, we had so many guys. John Force. I mean, he comes walking up. He goes, "This is what I'm talking about." I can't use all the words he uses.
Sure.
But I mean, he just was thumbs up, and this is so cool. And it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. Great Lakes Dragaway is the first track that I ever went to, so it's always going to have a soft spot in my heart. Unfortunately, they have their own group that does that, so we haven't been there in a while. But someday we're open to it. We'd like to go back, and the owners have been Marcel and Randy have always been really good to me. Marcel and I've been friends for years and years and years, and I have an open invitation to test there anytime I want. I'm 20 minutes away from my house, so and it's a really cool track. I mean, it's been there forever. It's got more history than just about any other track, and they really do a good job as far as they have the best concessions. They have really nice bathrooms. They have showers. It's, for a small track, I mean, they do a good job. But anyway, I'm not on their payroll, so
I was going to say, and it's 2 for 1 this Friday.
Yeah, right.
Because we did have those things. Because when we were listening to Mike Evans and stuff, and they were talking about how back in the day, they would have date night Friday night for a test and tune where a guy paid and your date got in for free.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that would bring in more people. I mean, the nostalgia folks and everything that we've seen, especially with the Nostalgia Nationals up here that Steve Tomosik runs at Milan Dragway before all this stuff happened. It was amazing to see in the seats because we saw the gray-haired gentlemen bring their grandkids, and everybody got to walk around the pits and nostalgia events. And I believe it's kind of what you were describing with your group. It's not that uptight in the pits. Here's the cars, kids. If you want to come up close, we're not going to take out the shotgun and move you away.
Exactly. Because we were I was that guy. When I was a kid watching. I remember going to I went to Indy when Tony ran modified, and I remember going like Jenkins, and then watching him and Larry Lombardo going, man, this is really something, and I never forgot that. So that's most of our guys kind of feel the same way and did the same thing. So we have hero cards and all that, and it's a thrill for us too. It makes you feel good that you made somebody else feel good. And when we appreciate them spending their hard-earned money coming out to us, because, boy, they got a whole lot of other choices,
Yeah, but it's one of those things where the performer's great, so the audience is into it, so the performer gets more into it, so the audience really thinks this is a hell of a night, and away we go in that circle. And same thing with you guys. Folks are, for fans, we're really, and again, I will speak for all the fans, we love what you guys do. We love that, your car, the Bob Glidden car, We'd love more Sox and Martin cars, however, but thank you for keeping that part alive so we can explain to folks this is what drag racing, this was the golden age, and I'll say it was the golden age of drag racing, when everybody got involved. When you do take a look at some of those things on YouTube and you see that there's folks not only 10 deep in the stands, but they're parked all the way down the track and further. Where did we lose that? Well, there's a couple of reasons why, but the good thing is that you and your car and then the Bob Glidden car and all the folks that you have at the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Associations, thanks a lot. Seriously, these things are not cheap to operate. And, I mean, it's not like you get 40 miles to the gallon and to go period correct, you could have painted the thing black and put Mike Ruth on the side and, you would have been on your way. But no, you took the hard-earned to do everything to make it correct, to put in the Linkos, and everybody else in your group who were trying to get as close to possible. I love the fact that somebody came up to you and said, that sticker's a 1/4 inch off. Hot damn. That means not only do they remember it, but that you did a hell of a job, that they had to really, really look at it and to do that. So I guess from everybody in drag racing, fandom, thank you, Mike Ruth, and thank you, group, for doing what you're doing, because you get to bring the whole family out. You get to bring Grandpa and the second generation and the third generation, and they can all point and say, oh, I had one like that. Oh, I knew somebody like that. And then the little kids, there's still some pageantry about a drag race car, and when they get the opportunity to sit in your car, in the Bob Glidden car, and put their hands on the steering wheel and rock it a little bit, tell me that's not a memory that it's going to stay with them, for a couple of Christmases way down the road. Remember that time you took us to a drag strip? Look how small I was. It's a genius thing. You could have gone in any other version of drag racing, and you went to the one that put the most smiles on the faces for the most common fan, and so we thank you greatly. Coupled with that fact, we be amiss to say who's your sponsors, so we make sure that they get a mention today.
We have, I was hoping I could do that. My main guy is John at Power Master Performance Products. I mean, they make the best, made in USA, the best electrical products that you can ask for. And John is just a gigantic supporter of our program and all that. I can't say enough about him. And obviously McLeod has been, fantastic. Paul Lee and Krista have just helped me out tremendously. And we got a new sponsor that we're going to announce here pretty quick. BP Fuels is coming on board to help us out a little bit. So yeah, it's all good. And then all the fans. I mean, the guys that spend their hard-earned cash to watch us having fun and showing off. I mean, we couldn't do it without you. And people like yourself that actually, work past 5 o'clock and use all your equipment to let me flap my gums. And it's just, I can't tell you how much fun we're having. And I'm sure all the guys in the group will say the same thing. It's a tremendous amount of work. Yes. It's there's a ton that goes on. These cars are the same as they were back then. And you watch how much they worked on them then. Well, we're still working on them now all the time, but it's a labor of love, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel blessed that I can continue to do this, and I hope I can keep doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, ain't thinking about saying, well, we're going to give it a year, and then I'm going to find a nice place in Florida?
You know what? This is all I've ever done. Some people would say, ooh, you're kind of sad or whatever. I mean, I don't golf, I don't fish, I don't throw darts. I don't have a whole lot of hobbies. This is it. My whole life has been involved in performance cars since I was a teenager. Before that, I was working on hot rod mini bikes. So, and as long as I can, the good Lord keeps my health, and I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by my crew chief, Dave Meyer, is just this guy does not know the word quit. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we were down, and I just said, that's enough. And he's like, no, we can get this done. And then first and foremost, my girlfriend is just, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have someone that shares my interest and passion. I mean, she's just there always, and I never have to say, oh, you think I should buy this cam? Well, it's going to make the car go faster. Yeah, buy it.
Well, she got any sisters? Says everybody here. Good Lord.
I'm a lucky guy, and the guys we race with, I mean, they're the best. I mean, everybody we get along great, and a lot of camaraderie, a lot of jokes. I could go on and on about that. Some other time when you're really slow and you need another, some really good stories that we've done, that these guys have done in the past. Believe me, they're pranksters, that's for sure. And, but they're serious when when the top bulb gets lit. That's it. It's every guy for himself kind of thing. And then once it's over with, then you're out there, helping the guy get his parachute or talking about the run or whatever. So it's like I said, I feel like I'm like the luckiest guy in the world being able to do this. I never dreamed it. The last story at the World Series a couple of years ago, Pat Musey was there, the Pat Musey, and somebody got the brainy idea that he should drive one of these older cars, and so Mark graciously lent him the rare Morrison Camaro. So I got to race Pat Musey at the World Series. We were the last two cars down the track, and we did a staging duel, and out of all the things, I won that. Everything else, he spanked me bad. He treed me and he outran me and the whole deal. But I'm sitting in the staging lanes on the radio telling my crew, I'm like, if somebody would have told me when I was at the Winter Nationals in '79 watching this car that I'd be driving it one day racing Pat Musey, I'd tell them they're out of their mind. And so it's been a lot of fun for me too,
Mike, has there been one car that you never drove that you wanted to?
Probably any car I never drove. You know what? It doesn't even have to have wheels. It can have a track. I don't care. I'll drive it. Dominic Blasco and I were at a track, and these guys had these, not the snowmobiles, but for dirt or for track racing, whatever snowmobiles.
Yeah.
I spent most of my adult life in Southern California. Needless to say, there's no snow. And we're sitting there, and the guy that owned it was a bigger guy, and he's like, man, I'm giving up a lot of weight to Dom. He goes, you ever ride one of these? I'm like, no. And he said, what do you think? I don't know, hold my beer. One of those deals. And I had a riot. It was fun. I mean, it was a little scary when the thing got 3 feet in the air, and I'm like, okay, I don't think it's supposed to do this. But so, if it goes fast, I don't know, I'll give it a whirl. Why not?
I mean, would you drive a funny car? A present-day funny car?
Oh, I doubt it. That's even, I would have to go through, some steps. I mean, I wouldn't just hop in. You'd be a fool to do something like that. I don't know if I don't think I'm quite that brave, It's real easy on the phone or the keyboard. I'll tell you, I sat in one, and it was cool, and then they lowered the body, and I'll tell you what, boy, it's pretty intimidating. I don't know. I would have to have a lot of, I would have to start out with like a Briggs & Stratton engine and work my way. It would be cool, but I doubt I'll ever do it. So.
Well, Mike, you're a hell of a guy. I mean, normally 99% of men would say, "Oh, hell yeah, give me the keys. Let's go. Let's start this thing up."
Yeah, well,
I have no fear until they say, "Okay, want to sit on one?" Oh yeah, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be back in about 2 days.
Yeah, I drove we built an A-gas supercharged car for a guy once, a Willys, and with a blown JT1 motor in it. And, he made me drive it. He's a bigger guy. So you're driving this thing. You build it, you drive it. And I'll tell you what, I took it down, but my foot was shaking so bad on that clutch that, damn good thing no one else came. It took them a long time to get there because I was just like, wow, what did I just do?
I mean, did it ever get the Bob Glidden car ever get squirrely on you? Where you kind of went, let's hold on here?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, sooner or later, and you're gonna run into trouble. It's just part of the deal, and you're gonna hit some oil or trans fluid, or the wind's gonna blow, or something's gonna happen. So you just, fortunately, I have never had anything really bad. So that's good. But you have to, they're not toys.
No.
You have to. If you don't respect them, they'll bite you every single time. And again, I feel really confident. I've had the same crew forever. I mean, it's the same guys, and so I feel, 100% good every time I get in that car. And that's part of it too. You have to be confident with your equipment, and I suppose you have to be confident in your ability and know your like dirty Harry. You got to know your limitations. I'm not. There's guys that out-drive me all day long. I don't. But they don't own the car I do, so I'm driving it.
Yeah, I mean, before we go, best race you ever had?
Probably when I won the Grumpy Cup. Was probably the best for me because I shouldn't have. I actually was not the faster car, but I took advantage of a stumble that one of our good friends, Scott Hoffman. I mean, he was a class all day. He was ahead of me all day long, and we got in the final round, and he pulled a big wheelie, and the carburetor, I guess, put gas in the motor. It stumbled, and I was able to get around him, and it was cool that I won that. But probably the most fun race with me driving was racing Pat Busey.
Man,
that was and another one of our guys, Jungle George Cubis, who's kind of a legend. He raced in the '70s in pro stock. He had a Hemi Arrow, Soxon Martin, Billy the Kid, and unfortunately, he's fighting some issues right now, so he had to sell the car. But it was always fun racing him because I remember him back in the day. And so yeah, for anybody, I like I said, I just love starting the car up and driving it down the track. I'll do it in the middle of the night with the lights off and nobody around.
Your neighbors like you?
I mean, when you have a crowd behind you, they're all, yelling and screaming and all that. And so, yeah, you get a little bit more pumped up,
Well, see, Mike, I mean, God bless you, lad, because you are one of the greatest ambassadors of drag racing because your enthusiasm obviously comes through the radio pretty damn well, and it's exciting to hear you talk about drag racing because it gets other people exciting, and then they want to come, and then they want to see you, and then they want to experience it. Where can they reach you, Mike, by the way?
Well, we have a Facebook site, Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association, paying tribute to the legends, I think is how it goes. We do have a website, although we're not all that active on the website, but if you like the Facebook page, then we put stuff up. I don't even say daily anymore. It's almost like hourly.
Wow.
Eileen does a fantastic job, as do a lot of the other guys. We put stuff up all the time. This week, a lot of guys are putting stuff up from when we were at Pomona, past races and past things. And, one of the other cars we have, Bill White, the Weehall Camaro, you probably back in the day saw it. Joe Satmir, he was a Midwest guy that did very, very well for being unsponsored. Bill White, who drives it now, used to be a mechanic on that car back then. How cool is that?
Wow.
And he's the oldest. I got to keep him going because if something happens to him, I don't want to be that. But so we have a lot of characters. A lot of Ted Peters is a Division III tech inspector for NHRA, and I'm not sure if it's 26 or 27 years in the Air Force. Retired as a senior master sergeant. I mean, we're surrounded by some really cool people. So it's fun. We go out and have a good time. And I encourage anybody to come out, say hi, say you heard it on the radio. That's cool. And we have hero cards. Be happy to sign one, take pictures, whatever.
It's an amazing thing. See, that's why we want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you or your club. Because, I mean, we can hear the enthusiasm for drag racing, through your voice. And we love, love, love having folks like you on with us. And we're so glad you are. Thank you, Mike Ruth. I appreciate you being on with us with the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association. Go out, see where they're going to be. They're going to be at Great Lakes.
No,
there and everywhere.
There, that's the other group. We'll be at the Hot Rod Reunion in Bowling Green,
That's
Kentucky.
right, yes.
Our schedule will be I encourage everyone, like the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association page, we will be publishing our schedule here probably in the next couple of weeks, and it has dates and times and the whole thing, and you'll be able to follow us along. And please stop by and say hi and say, hey, you heard it on the radio. And because honestly, John, it's a thrill for me to be on here. I mean, when I look at the guys that you interview, I'm like, why the heck is he calling me?
Because precisely how this hour went with you. That's why. Because we do, and again, as before the phone, it's like we thank you as fans so very much for keeping, the Bob Glidden car live and everybody else in your group alive with everything that they do, because really you could have had, and as we said this before, you could have had, the car painted black, put Mike Ruth on the side, and, still had all your fun, but that you wanted to, like, tip the hat to fans in all the generations, the folks that remember the gray hair and the dad and the kid. It's not possible with somebody with a black Camaro because they're thrashing and doing stuff. You're actually going there not only to race, but to show, to be a show person, and to show off what the best part of drag racing was in the best era, we think, was. And so we thank you so very much for keeping that alive and keeping those cars alive and keeping those memories alive and being able to have, Grandpa, Dad, Son talk about the time that they went out and saw the Mike Ruth car, the tribute car for Bob Glidden, and they took the picture. And boy, how nice that was and how, enjoyable that was. And for Christmases down the line, they'll be talking about it forever. I know we said that before, but I want to make damn sure that you heard it. So there.
Well, it's been a giant thrill. Honestly, it's a thrill for me to be on this and to spread the word and everything. And it is an honor and a privilege to represent, to kind of hold Bob's legacy together. And like I said, the Gliddens have been nothing but nice to me, and they're on board 100%. So, which is really, really good too. So it's like I said, it's we're having fun, and to be on your show is a thrill. It really is. So.
We better announce before we go is the hierarchy in your club, vice president, presidents. They are.
We don't. Well, we have the guys that are really running it. Mark Pappas started the group, and Mark Pappas is our fearless leader. It's a democracy. It's different than a lot of other clubs. We pretty much vote on a lot of stuff. The other guy that does a lot is, I told you before, Ted Peters. He's another guy up there that gets us races. That he's in charge of making sure that all of our cars are correct and safe and per NHRA, so we don't have any issues there. And so basically, it's kind of everybody contributes a little bit there. And but Mark would really, you got to give him the credit for starting the group and keeping it all going and all that. So and he's if you come out to the races, I can introduce you to him. He's a hockey player, so you got to kind of take that into consideration. He's been hitting the head a few times. But no, great guy and really passionate as well. He's a giant car collector. He's got some really cool cars. And like I said, you got the original Jenkins Vega. I mean, a real deal car. Wow. But all the guys are great. And we all pretty much have a passion for what we're doing. And I think they all feel kind of like the same way that I do. It's a privilege to be able to do this. And I'm going to do it as long as I can until somebody says, "Okay, that's it, old man, get out of the car."
Yeah, okay. Well, you're 28 now. You got plenty of years ahead of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be doing this another.
I mean, 19-year-old girlfriend, 28. You still, man, you got a lot of time ahead of you.
Yeah. You want to see a 19-year-old girl get disappointed? Introduce her to me.
I'm telling you, if you're anywhere in the Midwest or anywhere these guys are, look them up on their Facebook page. It's under Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association. Don't get them confused with the other people. That it's an unusual way that you would take somebody else's name, but that's I guess that's another story.
For another day.
Yeah, but
anyway,
don't
we're
be.
over it.
Yeah,
but please, if you like our page, mention that you saw it. You listened to. The radio, the podcast, and we'll get you hooked up with all the stuff that comes on all the time. And there's a lot of neat stuff. There's a lot of cool guys in this group that have some really neat stuff that they put out. There's a lot of real heroes out there. So
yeah, you need more Mopar though, doggone ya.
Well, we've got a couple of them, and we got Ted Peters is the the king of the Mopar nation, and so he's out there, And then we have a new guy, Joe Gouger, who has a Reed Wisnat Daytona.
Really?
With real deal Hemi and Alenko, and so his car was at PRI as well. He joined up with us last year, and beautiful, absolutely gorgeous car, and fast. So yeah, we need more Fords. What we need. I got this giant target on my back. I'm always getting beat up. So.
Yeah, but the brighter the light, the bigger the target. So there you go, son.
Yeah, so at Indy, Rusty said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I'm a little bit down." He goes, "Well, we got to get after this thing." I'm like, "Okay."
Amazing. Mike, hang on the line for you for just a minute, won't you please? Mike Ruth of the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association. Go see him. Obviously, you heard what he sounds like, and you hear the enthusiasm that he has for the sport. And that is the one thing that this sport so desperately needs, is more ambassadors like Mike Ruth, like his club, the Midwest Nostalgia Pro Stock Association, Part A or whatever they are. You'll see, if you go on the Facebook page, look for, I assume the gentleman named Mike Ruth or his car, which is the Bob Glidden car, and then you'll know that's the group that we were talking about all day today. Talking about all day today, we got to move it along. However, I know that we went a little bit late today on this. We're talking to all the CKiW iRADIO 76 affiliates on the line. We ran a little bit late with Mr. Ruth, but that's okay. I know the owner. I'll smooth it with him. But we'll make it up on the Detroit Sports Authorities that are coming up live at 7 o'clock tonight. If you hate Detroit sports as much as everybody in Detroit does, you'll love the Detroit Sports Authorities coming up 7 o'clock live here on the only station that gives a damn about the greatest sport on earth, and that's drag racing, CKiW Radio 76 with Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.